Focus on yourself for a life-changing experience. Buddhist wisdom: imagine you hold the key to complete freedom, a life where you're not controlled by others' opinions, where fear of rejection doesn't exist, and your inner peace is unshakable. The world around us is constantly trying to influence and steer us in different directions. Each day we face pressure from others' comments, expectations, and opinions, which can easily pull us away from our true path. But how can we handle this pressure? The secret lies in learning to focus on yourself, a profound lesson from Buddhism. Today's video will reveal 10 valuable Buddhist lessons on how to break free from dependence on others and take control of your life. These lessons not only help build mental strength, but also give you tools to create a life of peace and happiness from within. Let's dive into each of these teachings. 1. Stop relying on others for happiness. As Buddha once said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. This means true happiness isn't about what others bring, but stems from self-acceptance and contentment. Illustrative story. Imagine you're someone who constantly seeks to please those around you. Whenever someone criticizes or shows dissatisfaction with you, you feel hurt and inadequate. One day, you meet an old monk who shares that happiness is an internal process. No one can bring you happiness except yourself. From then on, you decide to find satisfaction in your own values instead of looking for acceptance from others. Lesson: by learning to create joy and contentment from within, you won't be as affected by outside opinions. This inner peace is solid and cannot be taken away by others. 2. Don't fear being alone. This is where you'll find true strength, as Buddha taught. Meditate, live purely, be quiet, do your work with mastery. This statement highlights that solitude isn't something to fear, it's a source of power. Illustrative story. Imagine a successful entrepreneur who is always busy with a tight schedule and social meetings. On a trip to a quiet temple, he meets a monk who advises him to spend time alone to explore himself. He begins spending a few moments each day meditating and eventually discovers clarity and peace that he's never had before. Lesson: when we learn to embrace solitude, we find strength within ourselves and no longer depend on others for comfort and peace. 3. Stop seeking approval from others. Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." This lesson reminds us that the most crucial acceptance we need is from ourselves. Illustrative story. A young woman is constantly trying to make everyone like her. Every time someone doesn't accept her, she feels lost and unworthy. One day, she meets a friend who is a Buddhist practitioner. The friend says that others' acceptance isn't as important as loving and accepting oneself. The young woman then begins focusing on her own satisfaction, letting go of the need for others' approval. Lesson: when we accept ourselves, we no longer need validation from others and can live a freer life. Don't let rejection break you. Rejection is a natural part of life. Instead of letting it define your worth, view it as an opportunity for growth. Illustrative story. A young artist is rejected dozens of times when she tries to showcase her artwork. Instead of giving up, she decides to learn from rejection and improve her work. After years of perseverance, she finally succeeds and realizes that each rejection helped her become better. Lesson: rejection can motivate us to strive for improvement as long as we don't let it defeat us. 5. Don't fear what others think of you. One of the main sources of anxiety is worrying about what others think of us. Buddha teaches, focus on yourself instead of looking at others' faults. This quote reminds us that we shouldn't be concerned with external judgment. Illustrative story. A student always feels anxious before a speech because he's worried about others' judgment. But when he recalls Buddha's teachings, he realizes that others' judgment isn't as important as his confidence in himself. He learns to not be swayed by outside opinions and to focus on his own worth. Lesson: when we let go of the fear of judgment, we gain the freedom and peace to live our truest lives. 6. Don't sacrifice your peace to please others. Many of us have a tendency to sacrifice our inner peace to make others happy, whether it's at work, with family, or in relationships. However, this can lead to imbalance and stress. Buddha taught, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace, a reminder that the value of inner peace is worth more than everything else. Illustrative story. Imagine you are a diligent employee who always agrees to every request from your boss and colleagues, no matter how small. You begin to feel exhausted, lacking time for yourself and your family. One day, you decide to set clear boundaries and start saying no to unreasonable requests, allowing time for yourself. As a result, you feel relieved, at peace, and much more effective at work. Lesson: learning to set boundaries and not feeling guilty for saying no helps you protect your inner peace. This peace of mind allows you to live more genuinely, with greater energy, and naturally support others without sacrificing yourself. 7. Focus on what you can control, yourself. We often feel uneasy and frustrated when things don't go as planned. Buddhism teaches that clinging to things beyond our control only leads to suffering. You cannot change others' behaviors or thoughts, but you can control your own actions, thoughts, and feelings. Illustrative story: a young woman joins a major project and faces irresponsible colleagues, causing repeated delays. She often loses sleep and feels stressed, wanting everything to be perfect. But a friend advises her to focus only on her own work and let go of what she can't control. As a result, she feels more comfortable and completes her tasks more effectively. Lesson: when we stop trying to control everything around us and focus on ourselves, we reduce anxiety and create a more harmonious life. True power lies in the ability to control oneself. 8. Realize that people are focused on their own lives. We often feel pressured, thinking others are constantly watching and judging us. Buddha teaches that most people are focused on their own problems rather than on us. This realization can be very liberating from the fear of judgment. Illustrative story: a man is hesitant about a career change because he fears others will judge him. He assumes people will find his choice strange or unreliable. But when he starts sharing his intentions, he realizes most people only offer a few words of encouragement before returning to their own lives and work. This realization relieves him of his fear and boosts his confidence. Lesson: instead of fearing what others think, focus your energy on pursuing your passions and ideals. When you concentrate on your own life, you feel freer and less constrained by external judgments. 9. Don't fall into social comparison. One of life's biggest traps is comparing yourself to others, whether in appearance, career, or happiness. Buddhism teaches that comparison is a form of attachment that leads to suffering. As Buddha said, health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth. Happiness doesn't come from having more than others, but from contentment with what we have. Illustrative story: a young woman often feels insecure when seeing her friends' luxurious and successful lives on social media. She starts feeling inadequate and loses confidence. One day, she decides to spend less time on social media and instead practices gratitude for what she already has. Gradually, she feels content and happy with her current life. Lesson: when you stop comparing and focus on yourself, you feel grateful and more satisfied. Remember that happiness comes from self-acceptance and does not depend on being better than someone else. 10. Prioritize inner growth over external validation. Nowadays, many people seek external validation to feel good about themselves. Buddhism emphasizes that true happiness and peace come from inner growth. Buddha said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." When we focus on developing our mindset, self-awareness, and compassion, we feel more at peace and empowered. Illustrative story: a young man spends much time posting his successes on social media to gain admiration, but he feels empty when outside attention fades. One day he decides to reduce his time online, instead practicing meditation, reading, and deepening his self-awareness. He begins to feel more peaceful, no longer dependent on others' praise. Lesson: when you invest in inner growth, you find lasting happiness and confidence. External validation only brings temporary satisfaction, while internal growth offers a long-lasting source of joy and self-assurance. Conclusion: through these valuable lessons from Buddhism, we realize that true peace and happiness lie in our hands, not in external validation or material values. By focusing on ourselves, letting go of fear of judgment, rejection, and pressure to please others, we can find the freedom and strength to live a meaningful life. Each lesson above is not only a philosophy, but also a practical reminder to live a fuller, more authentic life. Start with small actions, spend time with yourself, love yourself, and live true to your values. When you learn to let go and live with acceptance, you'll realize that true peace is always within you, waiting for you to discover it.